Our client, Tubes Inc., is an EU-based supplier of tubes for global oil and gas companies. The client operates a factory that has been very successful since its launch 4 years ago, with strong growth. In fact, our client has the strongest brand in the industry. However, in the last 6 months, the order fulfillment time has increased, and now it takes up to 3 months to deliver the products. The client's customers are concerned with such a long waiting time and have informed the client that they will switch to competitors if the delivery time issue is not resolved. Why has the order fulfillment time increased? What can the client do to address this problem? Now that you have received the prompt, you may feel compelled to start structuring your approach to solve this problem. But you shouldn't start structuring just yet. First, we must ensure we have all the correct information and that we are not missing anything important. This is called the prompt recap. Why do we need to recap? First, accuracy is critical. The foundation of effective problem solving is accurate information. Incorrect data not only wastes precious time, but also misdirects efforts. We need to confirm that every piece of information we gather and provide is accurate. Second, alignment. Slight differences in the question can result in completely different projects and recommendations. That is why we want to align on the question very well before proceeding. The best way to do that is to recap it as you understood it and ask for confirmation. And third, buying time. Recapping allows your brain more time to absorb and connect the information, and to start thinking about potential clarification questions and structuring approaches. This happens even if you're not yet fully conscious of those processes running in the background. In case interviews, recapping the prompt is a critical step. It confirms your understanding and showcases your attention to detail. But what are the interviewers looking for when we do this? First, note-taking skills. Your ability to distill the most important information without transcribing every single word. Second, validation of information. Ensuring accuracy before proceeding prevents the risk of working with incorrect data. Effective recapping every time you receive valuable information in the case not only reassures interviewers, but also minimizes errors and aligns your responses more closely with the interviewer's expectations. Now let's take a look at what your notes should look like. You will notice that we use many abbreviations to keep notes brief. First, the basic information about the client. Second, they have been growing steadily since they launched 4 years ago. Third, the order fulfillment time has increased over the last 6 months, posing a significant challenge. Fourth, the time has increased to 3 months to deliver goods to clients. Fifth, the risk of losing clients if the issue is not fixed. And most importantly, the client's questions. First, find the origins of the increase in the order fulfillment time. Second, provide recommendations to solve the issue. You should focus on the critical information only. The interviewer will often give you information that isn't crucial for solving the case. Knowing the difference will be important to ensure you don't spend too long taking notes. On that note, you may have noticed that our notes are as short as possible and use some signs. That is because you won't have the time to write everything down. You must do this as the interviewer is speaking. With these shortcuts, you will save a lot of time. Just make sure you understand everything when you're reading it afterwards. In the full bootcamp, we'll go deeper into note-taking strategies and organization techniques to optimize your paper space and minimize confusion. Let's take a look of what a recap could sound like.
Great, so our client makes industrial tubes and has been facing issues with an increase in order fulfillment time, which now takes up to 3 months. They are in the EU. Their clients are concerned about the long waiting time and are threatening to switch to a new supplier. So the client wants to know what is causing this issue and how to fix it. Can I ask some clarification questions now?
As you can see, this candidate has made a brief recap of the case, highlighting some of the most important quantitative information. He also briefly recapped the case and mentioned that he would ask clarifying questions as the next step. This is a good recap, but it can be improved. Let's see how a great recap sounds.
Thanks for the case, Flavio. No one likes long waiting times. I can relate to the customers who are threatening to switch. Let's fix this before it's too late. I'd like to recap to make sure I have all the information correctly, and after that, I will ask a few questions to understand the client's issue better. Is that okay? The situation is that our client is an EU-based manufacturer of industrial tubes for oil and gas companies. The client has been successfully growing and building a strong brand for the past 4 years. The complication is that they have been facing an issue for the past 6 months with their fulfillment time, which has increased to 3 months. Clients will switch suppliers if the issue is not fixed. So, our client posed 2 questions. First, what's causing this increase in order fulfillment time, and second, how to fix it.
Let's see why this is a great recap. The candidate is cordial with the interviewer, signaling that he will also treat clients cordially. He also makes an opening remark that breaks the ice and shows he's actively thinking about the problem. Here we can see the candidate announcing what they're going to do, so the interviewer understands they have a plan and knows what they're doing. Then, the candidate proceeds to recap the most important information given in the prompt in a more fluid way. As you can see, the candidate doesn't feel the need to repeat the exact same words given by the interviewer. He explains the client's case from his own perspective using his own words, while also including all the important quantitative information to confirm its accuracy. At the end, the candidate recaps the 2 questions the client has. The candidate also remembers the main reason for recapping, to check if they understood the case correctly. In summary, the candidate not only confirms his understanding of the case, but also organizes the information and communicates professionally. Now, imagine a client approaches you with a specific issue and asks for your help. Is this client going to give you all the necessary information you need to solve the issue all at once? Probably not. So you'll need to ask specific questions to help you understand the situation and complication better, allowing you to address them effectively and efficiently. This is where clarifying questions come in handy. As you've seen in the full case demonstration, before you proceed to structuring the case, your interviewer will always give you some time to ask any clarification questions you may have. But remember, you don't want to waste your client's time with every single question that comes to mind. You need to determine which questions are actually the most important. At Highbridge, from the combined experience of our ex-MBB faculty and hundreds of candidates over the years, we have found that there are 5 critical categories of clarifying questions that are useful in most cases. Let's start with definitions questions. These are questions where you clarify terminology or concepts mentioned in the case. For instance, if the case mentions sustainable growth metrics, you might ask, could you specify what sustainable means here? This helps ensure that everyone is on the same page regarding terminology. Next, we have what exactly happened questions. These are crucial when the case lacks clear details about the main change or problem that has been observed. You might say, you mentioned a drop in sales last quarter. How big was the drop? This allows you to quantify and better understand the full context of the events affecting the client. Then there are goal questions. These questions aim to uncover the precise objectives the client is targeting. For example, if the goal is to increase market share, you would ask, by what percentage does the client aim to increase their market share? This clarifies the scale of things and helps you set a specific goal for your recommendations. Moving on to business model questions. Here you explore how the client business operates within their industry. You might ask, can you explain the client's role in the supply chain? Do they handle steps 1 and 2, or also step 3? This helps you understand the mechanics behind the client's business challenges and what the client can and can't easily change, which should deeply influence your recommendations. Lastly, we address industry questions. These questions assess whether the issue is isolated to the client or prevalent across the industry. One example question could be, Is this challenge something that is impacting all players in the industry or just the client? Now, remember the information that was given in the case prompt. Write down all of the questions that come to your mind that relate to the categories we just looked at. You can pause the video to do that. Have you written down the questions you would ask the interviewer? Then let's see some suggestions. Our first question in the definition category would be how to define order fulfillment time. What are the steps included here? In other words, what specific event starts the clock and what event stops it? It's very important for us to understand what this exactly means in this case and for this client. Second, in the what exactly happened category, you could ask by how much the order fulfillment time changed. We need to define that number to better understand the severity of the problem and fine-tune our hypothesis based on this information later on. And that is related to the goal question. You should ask, does the client have a quantitative target and a deadline? This is crucial for us to understand what success looks like for the client. Now for our business model question. In this case, you could ask, what exactly does the client do regarding making these industrial tubes? Are they buying raw materials, manufacturing the tubes, and shipping them to end customers? This helps us understand which steps of the development process our client is involved in. Be careful not to ask this question too generically. Provide your current understanding of the business first. In the consulting bootcamp, we practice asking very targeted business model questions. Lastly, an industry question that you could ask would be, are our competitors facing the same delays? This is a very important question because depending on the answer, we can take our structure in very different directions. Now let's look at the answers given by our client. Order fulfillment time, OFT, is the time from order placed to order delivered. OFT was 1.5 months, but has increased to 3 months. The goal is to bring OFT back down to 1.5 months. In 6 months, customers will leave if the OFT doesn't decrease. The client buys steel plates and makes tubes according to the customer's demands. We are not aware of competitors facing the same issues. So we have quite a bit of new information that could be important for us to progress with the case in the correct direction. As you're giving these responses, you should be taking careful notes as you did in the beginning of the case. In this scenario, we got all the answers we needed, but that's not always the case. If you're more experienced in case interviews, you might be asking yourself, what should I do if my interviewer has an unusual reaction to one of my questions, like asking what I think or why am I asking? You should always be prepared to defend the questions you are asking. This becomes much easier if you know exactly why you're asking each question. That is business sense, the 7th skill that underlies all others. We're not going to delve deeply into interview reactions now, but in our full consulting bootcamp, we cover how to deal with them to succeed, no matter what the response of your interviewer is. Before we proceed with the structuring, our client has decided to share an additional piece of information in the form of a graph. Here it is. What does it tell you? Cases do not always follow a predictable path. Often you need to structure right after the clarification questions, but not always. You need to be flexible and able to use the 7 skills in any order that is necessary. In this case, you received a graph to analyze first. What should you do? Let's take a quick look at the 4 steps to follow when you receive any exhibit during a case interview. First, you should understand what to do. What is the question you're trying to answer? Or if you don't have a question, what is the right question to ask? You should never start analyzing before having clarity on the question you want to answer. Second, read the chart and clarify. Check everything carefully, including the graph's axes and titles, to understand the information being displayed. If there are any words, abbreviations, or metrics you don't fully understand, this is the time to ask the interviewer. Third, extract all insights you can from the information given. Some will be more obvious, while others may require some math to reach. And lastly, summarize the most important insights you have identified to the interviewer and provide the next steps. These next steps could be calculations you believe will yield more insights or data requests to explore new hypotheses. By following these 4 steps, you can provide great insights in an organized way. Of course, mastering these steps and doing them quickly requires practice, which is why graphs are a key topic in the Consulting Bootcamp. Now pause the video and take a few seconds to read the graph. Take notes of any clarifying questions you may have. Next, let's look at what a great candidate would do in this situation.
Thanks for the exhibit, Flavio. I see here a bar chart showing thousands of tons per year and different clients. Are these our clients' customers?
Correct.
From what I understand, each bar represents the thousands of tons per year that each of our clients' customers have ordered, whether our client could deliver them or not. Is that correct too?
Yes.
So, to conclude, we see that the demand has increased substantially. If we focus on the period where the order fulfillment time has increased, the last year, demand has increased from 150 to 250,000 tons per year. My hypothesis is that the sharp increase in demand, a 2/3 increase, is causing the delays. As the next step, I would take a deeper look into our supply chain to understand if there is a bottleneck somewhere.
As you saw, our candidate started reading the graph immediately, expressing what he understood from it and asking clarification questions on the fly. Then he proceeded with forming a hypothesis he could test with his data. In the end, he concluded with clear next steps to show in which direction he'd like to steer the case.